Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming back to the show the CEO and Director of Nevada Exploration, Mr. Wade Hodges. And Nevada Exploration is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange, symbol NGE, and the over-the-counter, the OTC market, under the symbol NVDEF. Wade, welcome back.
Well, you're much too kind, Rory. Thank you for having me again, and I'd be very happy to interact with your listeners.
Well, we're glad you're here, and I know that you already have 30 million ounces of gold discovered under your belt, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But I wanted to ask you, Wade, about you're out in Nevada and I'm in Tennessee, and as you're well aware, Wade, I cover the economy and gold and silver and various other aspects of what's happening in our world, and I wanted to kind of get a boots on the ground assessment, if you would, of how the local economy is there and of where you're located. What, as far as what's actually happening in the area where you're located, are you seeing more commercial for lease signs, or are parking lots full at the restaurants, or are you seeing more homes going up for sale? Just in general, what do you see in relation how the economy looks to you in relation to what you hear on the news?
Well, I do listen to the news, and I listen to a lot of different presentations of the news, and I'm constantly trying to compare to my own direct experience, like I think most of your listeners are. And from my point of view, I don't think the economy here is showing any signs of particular improvement. If anything, focused in the business of gold exploration, we're still dealing with as much, if not more, regulations. I open the mail, and it's full of more informational forms that are just designed to, of course, help us all. Figure out how to best live our lives, and it takes away focus from the business of actually living our lives. And then we look around and wonder, what in the heck? I'm trying to be compliant in all these respects, and we then get treated to news releases like, gosh, there's this odd association that people's pay is going up, but productivity isn't. And it's no wonder in my mind. It's just ludicrous and it's not like rocket science. And then you wait to the next news release that purports to, explain a fact, and then you're left with this contradiction. Well, it doesn't seem to match my reality. And so people obviously, understandably get very confused. And of course, when you're confused, people just tend to knee-jerk reactions. There's all kinds of potential for people with much more devious mindsets to wreak havoc. And so the solution is to stay focused, I take a breath every day that I'm dealing with this stuff, and do a reset. Think, okay, now what is it I'm trying to do? Oh yeah, this is what I remember now. And then you can get back to actually doing something and see a result through all the flack, and I feel much better for it.
Well, there you go. That's it sounds like a good way of handling it. Just push everything aside and focus on what needs to be focused on. And Grass Valley and South Grass Valley properties were in the news recently, and from what I read, Wade, they're about 30 miles south of two large Barrick Gold properties, and you must be feeling pretty good about adding more than 230 new claims here and within these two properties. And Wade, what are some of the preliminary findings with all these new claims that you've got going on out there?
Well, what we've done is we've had a news release, and I continue to try to explain to interested people, what it is we're doing and why, so they can actually participate in the process. That avoids them having to simply make a decision based on the sound of my voice, or do they trust you, or whoever. They can actually, follow the clues.
Yep.
And what I'm trying to do, I've read something somewhere that I thought was interesting, caught my attention. An innovator is somebody whose vision of the future is clearer than the reality that tells them that they're crazy.
I like that.
And I've, for many years, maybe it's imbued with this vision of what I think the future can be like, and it's very clear to me. Okay, and that's what keeps me moving forward with the focus. The problem is, and then there's a lot of reality that says, oh, great, well, you're going to find a gold mine using groundwater chemistry. Yeah, but what about this? What about this? What about the other? Blah, blah, blah. And you end up with a whole list of obstacles. And through our history, each obstacle just becomes, in my mind, of course, an opportunity. You focus on it, and it's like whack-a-mole, the game whack-a-mole, where a problem pops up and you whack it. And then what you get is another problem, of course. You get to move on to the next level. And so you just keep doing that, and you find yourself one day very far ahead of the crowd. You think you're operating with a clear vision, and then you look around and see who's following you, and there's nobody following you, so you want to wonder what kind of leader you really are. And so part of the issue is to get clearer about what we're doing so that people can follow along. And so that's the news release comes out, I think, in the context of what most people read is a relatively, who cares news release. Ho-hum, gee, you finished mapping and sampling, you stake some more claims. Okay, what I really want to know is, when did you drill the hole that finds the gold? Now, if people will stop and think about that, if that's what they're really waiting for to then buy shares, they're going to be part of a large group of people that are all going to know what to do. It's very clear. There's no risk. They're going to drop the hammer, and everyone's going to be chasing an insanely, spiked up price.
Yep.
Well, that I guess is one aspect of reality. There will be people that do that. And then there's going to be another small group of people that are thinking, man, that was great, but how can I benefit from this? They want to get in early. They want to get in before the news. So on one hand, they want the news to get in, but then on the other hand, they want to know what's going on before. And so it puts a lot of pressure on people trying to look into the crystal ball, try to sort out what the future holds. And it's a huge business. We're all deluged with headlines that are trying to purport to sell something, and people just kind of yawn. Well, I think the way around this is to get back to the basics, to go with people that are willing to actually explain their thought process and how they're following these clues. And it's not necessary that you necessarily need to know the technical details. What I'm trying to do is set up a situation where the expectations are, gosh, when I hear this guy talk and I go to his website, I look at what he says, I understand it. I've learned something. I've got something out of this process. What a concept. That's different. Where has that ever happened? And so that's the goal. Now I put that up thinking, wow, this is really great, because that's what I'm really about, is solving these problems and then learning in the process. And I think the people that are willing to come along and join in that process are going to, one, benefit from being involved in the process, and then two, I think the monetary rewards will also come as well, because that's certainly how I position myself.
Well, I know that your stock has done very well over the last 2 or 3 months, and I don't foresee that changing. I mean, I think that what you first of all, your invention, if you will, is brilliant. I mean, the way that you go about trying to, with the new technologies that you've incorporated to make these discoveries, to add to your 30 million ounces of discoveries already. I mean, that in itself is worth investing in.
All I'm doing is looking at everything that everybody else has looked at, and then seeing something a little bit differently.
Exactly.
And then following that up. And that's what this presentation does. It's an example of how we go about our process, what clues we're using to follow, and it's an example of only one property. Okay? The point that it tries to make at the end of that presentation is that there are a whole bunch of other properties that we've already talked about that have been handled in a similar manner. The South Grass Valley presentation is that we're able to demonstrate, illustrate, if you will, more than just the specifics of one property, but about a process that we apply consistently, systematically to all of them. Okay, because what we're trying to do is capture value, not just on one gold mine found, but the real potential is to find a new process that really works. Because if it works in one place, it will work immediately in a whole lot of other places. And we want to be sure we've got a whole lot of those other places to maximize the upside potential of what we're really dealing with.
Yep. Well,
I could.
and the last time that we spoke, you were moving around to a couple of locations. And at this point, are you more focused? It sounds like you're more focused on the South Grass Valley properties. Are you still Are you still looking through these 230 new claims at this point, or are you a step closer to drilling a hole in the ground?
See, what we're talking about are trade-offs. And if you take it back to the very beginning, when I first realized that this really looked like it was on something, in other words, the beginning of a vision of the future, to where if we could solve the problem of finding gold deposits under cover by using groundwater chemistry, there's a huge demand in the market for that. And not for just one, but many. Okay, and at that point in time, nobody else was doing this. And so, to me, the analogy is 1849. You're a gold panner on a creek in California, and you're panning that gold. And at that point, you have no idea what the future holds, and so you start looking furiously for gold in riverbeds. And then eventually time goes by and you realize that that golden riverbed was only the tip of the iceberg, that it leads you to golden bedrock. And then you go, oh my gosh, I could have just been the hardware store operator that sold picks and shovels to everybody that was involved in both these games. Okay, and so your choice becomes, how do you make money? Well, fortunately, we have their experience. We can look back on that. And so I'm standing at a place called Fletcher Junction with a very high gold and groundwater anomaly, thinking, my gosh, this is going to work. But this is like me in the gold pan. And I'm at that moment thinking, well, maybe this gold and groundwater chemistry is going to lead me to actually the gold in the bedrock. And furthermore, if it really catches on, maybe the better thing to do is to take the hardware model and just sell a service. And then I realized, but wait, right now, nobody's even aware of this. I have all this benefit of history. I don't have to make a decision. I can choose to do it all. I can push all of this right now.
Exactly.
And so the longer it takes, yes, it's frustrating because there's a lot of people that say, just get real, forget all this abstract, try to do everything. Just focus on one. We'll be happy with one. And I'm thinking, well, I have no certainty that the first gold and groundwater anomaly we might find will be the big economic gold deposit. There's realistically plenty of obstacles. And so what you really want is a number of places to have these same characteristics, so that if you do miss on the first one, the law of averages or gambler's ruin doesn't take you out of the game. You've got other places that you can apply this to. So to do that, it's simply a matter of keeping your powder dry, looking, comments like look them in the eyes and only fire when you see the whites of their eyes, stuff like that.
Yep.
So where I say, okay, well, until competition heats up, until people become technically attuned to what we're doing and decide to compete, I've got the ability to run around here without any fear of competition, actually doing stuff that looks like real work, to identify properties, control the mineral rights. And then I realize I don't even need to do that because people are so far behind. I can identify anomalies that I know where I could go to stake claims. So why start increasing my costs of inventory needlessly by just staking claims everywhere? And so what you have is a pipeline that's completely full that now allows me the confidence to be less paranoid and to realize the reality is that people don't catch on to this stuff nearly as fast as I would have thought. Okay, so it allows us to start talking about it, to creating more people that are aware of it.
Yep.
So that's what brings us to an opportunity to really capitalize on not just an airplane trying to get wind under its wings to lift off the ground. What I'm really seeing is a rocket ship sitting on a launch pad. And I just want to be sure the wings don't fall off. Hence all the calculations and looking closer and getting things set up. So when you push the button, you can actually get way past the moon.
Well, it sounds like, Wade, that you want it all. Not only do you want all the gold that's waiting down there for you, but you want to have this service.
No, I don't. I wouldn't
globally.
Go that far. I wouldn't go so far that I want it all. Yeah, there's a greedy aspect, but what happens is, in order to get to the moon, you want to shoot for the edge of the solar system or something.
Yes.
Maybe an analogy like that. That realistically, the odds of success are such, there's no way we're going to have it all, because there's a lot of other good people out there, They're creative and thinking, and it's going to generate a lot of, activity, what we call an economy.
Yep.
And my point is that there's room for everybody if we can just focus on things. Well, right now we've got an election going on, and we're trying to pick who is it that best represents our futures. We've got Hillary and the problems that she's dealing with, and basically the status quo, which I am not excited about. Or you have somebody like Trump that comes along, and for my money, he's much more attuned with the kind of principles that I'm talking about. Creating an environment where if you do things that look like work, you can expect to get rewarded again. And bringing people together around those concepts allows us to all exchange ideas to try to improve the process. And so, for me, it's a pretty clear choice.
Yes. And then speaking of which, I mean, it seems like that Hillary would be more pro big government, and we need to send Wade more mail to regulate his life a little bit more. And Trump would be a little bit more, we need to save the postage and not send Wade so much mail.
I mean, I'm constantly told, Wade, your attempt to try to educate the public is laudable. But Wade, I'm here to tell you, good luck with that, because people are just stupid. They need to be controlled. You see evidence of that every day. You go to the supermarket or try to drive in traffic, and it's just a heavy, it drags me right down, because I refuse to let go of the idea that people aren't basically smart. At the level of information they have, they are perfectly capable of figuring out what is and what is not for themselves.
Exactly.
Now, that doesn't mean, everything that people are saying in this political environment is generally correct. That's how jokes are created. Somebody makes a joke, people laugh. Why? Because what they said, it's got some part of the truth to it. But it's also true that nothing that people say is complete. We all err around this idea that I've got it figured out, and this is the way it should be. I said, well, really? To me, that's a dangerous thing. When somebody tells me that they have it figured out, that's when I go, well, my experience doesn't fit with it. Many times I thought I've had it figured out. Okay? And it's about when I have it figured out that I get a big dose of reality.
Exactly. I've had many of those experiences myself. As a matter of fact, I had a couple just earlier today.
Well, in the end, it's each of our lives, and we're fundamentally the ones that should choose how it is to be lived. And I know that people like Hillary, I'm sure they all start out with the notion that they're just here to help us. That they think that they've seen something bigger, better, way to do things. And just please everybody, let's get on the same page. And what we need to do is beat everybody up, make a bunch of laws that force everybody to be on the same page. And won't we all be marching off into utopia? It doesn't work that way. Reality says you can't get rid of all the bad and still have the good.
No,
watch the devil's advocate again.
Well, I mean, we've proven, this country has proven beyond question that you cannot legislate morality. We proved it with prohibition, and they keep trying, and it just doesn't work. It just
that's stuff
doesn't.
That it's up to every individual to sort that out for themselves.
Exactly.
What you can do is agree on some rules on conduct.
Yes.
And those things can change as well, although slowly, of course. And trouble happens when somebody decides that they've seen the vision and they're going to force it. Be like, here's me, Wade Hodges. I had a vision. I can find gold using groundwater. Now, I could legislate everybody to give me money to go out and do it. I guess that's one way. Then I'd be a big Hillary champion. Hillary.
Exactly.
It's really hard talking to investors. So what I'll do is get political. I'll go talk to Miss Clinton. Mrs. Clinton, let's just dictate it. Won't it be happier and easier for everybody? And I don't do that, because I know that the reality is such that it's just an amazing story to actually go out and live your life and pay attention to what you learn along the way. So
paying attention to what you learn along the way, I like it a lot. And I want to ask
gold
you,
everywhere.
I want to ask you, Wade, since we've ventured into this realm, is you've already discovered over 30 million ounces of gold. which is a huge success. I mean, that's incredible, and that sets the bar pretty high as far as for you personally, I would think. And what are your personal goals for adding to your success? I mean, would another 10 million ounces, 20 million ounces, or a double from here? I mean, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything,
No.
I'm just asking what you have
Well,
massive success. So what does your future success, what does that look like to you?
Well, the success, yes, I've been associated with the discovery of 30 million ounces of gold. To say that Wade Hodges alone did it, I think, is not real. Okay, there's
Well,
been plenty of other people involved in the process, and I've been very careful when, really asked about what happened because I was there. And of course, it's from my perspective. He said this, she said that. This is what was done, and try to learn from the process. And so I have absolutely, however, been very happy, very proud to be part of these groups and teams, and I know exactly where I think I've contributed and where others have too. And so it's a dynamic, very positive experience. And so to my mind, my success isn't measured personally in how much money I've made or how many ounces I found. That's what happens when somebody writes a headline to try to attract the interest of other people. And hopefully they're interested enough now to listen to this, because what I'm really happy about is the life experiences that I've had, and that the challenges of learning how to deal more effectively with people, as well as just technical systems and processes. And the journey isn't over. And so for the future, it's I don't even like to think in terms of double or a triple. I mean, how high is the sky?
how long is a piece of string?
Given as long as I have my health and I'm still able to kick and push, that's what I'll be doing. And along the way, there's still going to be more discoveries, because I do not believe that anybody on this planet knows the answers to everything. There's plenty of things. They're just amazing out there, and it's really just these words are just an appeal to everybody to come join the party.
Come join the party. I like it. And Wade, it's awesome talking to you, and I absolutely love it. I mean, because you bring to the table a fire and an energy that is you're excited for life, and you're excited for what you're doing, and that just comes across. And I love talking to you. I really do. And the projects that you have on the table. I mean, you guys have 5 different properties for within Nevada exploration. I mean, there's 5 different locations that you're working, and like you were talking about a minute ago, it's playing the odds. One of those is going to hit, and when it does, you're going to be able to take that information and transfer it to these other properties, and they're all going to blossom all at the same time. And I can see you now sitting up on the hill looking at it going, woo!
Well, if I'm right and then investors are looking forward to the final news release, it says, finally, they made a news release, short and sweet, found gold. Okay? And they go and they look at the presentation. They say, by golly, there's a drill hole in rock this time, not just gold in groundwater or something. Then what the prospect is not that, well, good on you, you found one gold mine at that property. What happens is everybody will have to now do their own calculations to how is that new information in the world of reality that we've all lived with, how is that new thing going to ripple through and leverage across everywhere else, all the other places? Are there other places that have the same character? Are there other golden groundwater? Holy smokes! If it worked in one place, will it work in another? And so there's a lot of room for various valuation calculations, and a lot of people either get on board or continue to wait, on the sides. And my goal is to do the best I can to explain to everybody what it is that I'm seeing. And they can follow along with, there's risk associated with it because there's things we don't know, which is why we then go and take the next step and do something we propose to clarify whatever it is we think we don't know. So I could talk for hours,
I-
Rory. You better.
no, I love it. I mean, I don't want to turn you off. Far be it from me, my friend. But I do understand. And we've been speaking with Wade Hodges, and he is the CEO and director of Nevada Exploration. And you can find a lot more information at nevadaexploration.com. And their symbols on the Toronto Venture Exchange is NGE, and on the over-the-counter market, it is NVDEF. Wade, it's always a pleasure, and I hope that we can do this a lot sooner, a lot more sooner than later in the future.
No problem, Rory. Thank you.